Shemini Shel Pesach 8th day of Passover. Shemini Shel Pesach 8th day of Passover. Torah Devarim, Deuteronomy, 14:22-16-17, Haftarah Yesha Isaiah 10:32-12-6, Berit Hadashah Yochanan, John, 20:15-20. Torah Devarim, Deuteronomy, 14:22-16-17, 14:22. Every year you must take 1/10 of everything your seed produces in the field, and eat it in the presence of Adonai your God. In the place where he chooses to have his name live you will eat the 10th of your grain, new wine and olive oil, and the firstborn of your cattle and sheep, so that you will learn to fear Adonai your God always. But if the distance is too great for you, so that you are unable to transport it, because the place where Adonai chooses to put his name is too far away from you, then, when Adonai your God prospers you, you are to convert it into money, take the money with you, go to the place which Adonai your God will choose, and exchange the money for anything you want: cattle, sheep, wine, other intoxicating liquor, or anything you please, and you are to eat there in the presence of Adonai your God, and enjoy yourselves, you and your household. But don't neglect the Levi staying with you, because he has no share or inheritance like yours. At the end of every 3 years you are to take all the tenths of your produce from that year and store it in your towns. Then the Levi, because he has no share or inheritance like yours, along with the foreigner, the orphan and the widow living in your towns, will come. Eat and be satisfied, so that Adonai your God will bless you in everything your hands produce. 15:1. At the end of every 7 years you are to have a Shemitah. Here is how the Shemitah is to be done. Every creditor is to give up what he has loaned to his fellow member of the community. He is not to force his neighbor or relative to repay it. Because Adonai's time of remission has been proclaimed, you may demand that a foreigner repay his debt, but you are to release your claim on whatever your brother owes you. In spite of this, there will be no one needy among you, because Adonai will certainly bless you in the land which Adonai your God is giving you as an inheritance to possess, if only you will listen carefully to what Adonai your God says and take care to obey all these mitzvot I am giving you today. Yes, Adonai your God will bless you, as he promised you. You will lend money to many nations without having to borrow, and you will rule over many nations without their ruling over you. If someone among you is needy, one of your brothers, in any of your towns in your land which Adonai your God is giving you, you are not to harden your heart or shut your hand from giving to your needed brother. No, you must open your hand to him and lend him enough to meet his need and enable him to obtain what he wants. Guard yourself against allowing your heart to entertain the mean-spirited thought that because the 7th year, the year of Shemitah, is at hand, you will be stingy toward your needed brother and not give him anything, for then he may cry out to Adonai against you, and it will be your sin. Rather, you must give to him, and you are not to be grudging when you give to him. If you do this, Adonai your God will bless you in all your work, in everything you undertake, for there will always be poor people in the land. That is why I am giving you this order. You must open your hand to your poor and needy brother in your land. If your kinsman, a Hebrew man or woman, is sold to you, he is to serve you for 6 years, but in the 7th year, you are to set him free. Moreover, when you set him free, don't let him leave empty-handed, but supply him generously from your flock, threshing floor and winepress. From what Adonai your God has blessed you with, you are to give to him. Remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and Adonai your God redeemed you. That is why I am giving you this order today. But if he says to you, I don't want to leave you, because he loves you and your household, and because his life with you is a good one, then take an awl, and pierce his ear through, right into the door, and he will be your slave forever. Do the same with your female slave. Don't resent it when you set him free, since during his 6 years of service he has been worth twice as much as a hired employee. Then Adonai your God will bless you in everything you do. All the firstborn males in your herd of cattle and in your flock you are to set aside for Adonai your God. You are not to do any work with a firstborn from your herd or shear a firstborn sheep. Each year you and your household are to eat it in the presence of Adonai your God in the place which Adonai will choose. But if it is a defect, is lame or blind, or has some other kind of fault, you are not to sacrifice it to Adonai your God. Rather, eat it on your own property. The unclean and the clean alike may eat it, like the gazelle or the deer. Just don't eat its blood, but pour it out on the ground like water. 16:1. Observe the month of Aviv, and keep Pesach to Adonai your God, for in the month of Aviv, Adonai your God brought you out of Egypt at night. You are to sacrifice the Pesach offering from flock and herd to Adonai your God in the place where Adonai will choose to have his name live. You are not to eat any hametz with it. For 7 days you are to eat with it matzah, the bread of affliction, for you came out of the land of Egypt in haste. Thus you will remember the day you left the land of Egypt as long as you live. No leaven is to be seen with you anywhere in your territory for 7 days. None of the meat from your sacrifice on the first day in the evening is to remain all night until morning. You may not sacrifice the Pesach offering in just any of the towns that Adonai your God is giving you. But at the place where Adonai your God will choose to have his name live, there is where you are to sacrifice the Pesach offering, in the evening, when the sun sets. At the time of year that you came out of Egypt, you are to roast it and eat it in the place Adonai your God will choose. In the morning you will return and go to your tents. For 6 days you are to eat matzah. On the 7th day there is to be a festive assembly for Adonai your God. Do not do any kind of work. You are to count 7 weeks. You are to begin counting 7 weeks from the time you first put your sickle to the standing grain. You are to observe the festival of Shavuos, weeks, for Adonai your God with a voluntary offering, which you are to give in accordance with the degree to which Adonai your God has prospered you. You are to rejoice in the presence of Adonai your God, you, your sons and daughters, your male and female slaves, the Levim living in your towns, and the foreigners, orphans and widows living among you in the place where Adonai your God will choose to have his name live. Remember that you were a slave in Egypt, then you will keep and obey these laws. Mafti, you are to keep the festival of Sukkot for 7 days after you have gathered the produce of your threshing floor and winepress. Rejoice at your festival, you, your sons and daughters, your male and female slaves, the Levim, and the foreigners, orphans and widows living among you. 7 days you are to keep the festival for Adonai your God in the place Adonai your God will choose, because Adonai your God will bless you in all your crops and in all your work. So you are to be full of joy. 3 times a year all your men are to appear in the presence of Adonai your God in the place which he will choose at the festival of Matzah, at the festival of Shavuos and at the festival of Sukkot. They are not to show up before Adonai empty-handed, but every man is to give what he can, in accordance with the blessing Adonai your God has given you. Haftarah Yesha Isaiah 10:32-12:6. 10:32 This very day he will stop at November, and he will shake his fist at the mountain of the daughter of Zion, at the hill of Yerushalayim. See how Adonai Elohim Tzvaot lots off the branches with terrible violence. The ones standing highest are chopped down, the lofty are laid low. He will hack down the forest underbrush with an axe, and the elvanin in its splendor falls. 11:1 But a branch will emerge from the trunk of Yesha, a shoot will grow from his roots. The spirit of Adonai will rest on him, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and power, the spirit of knowledge and fearing Adonai. He will be inspired by fearing Adonai. He will not judge by what his eyes see, or decide by what his ears hear, but he will judge the impoverished justly. He will decide fairly for the humble of the land. He will strike the land with a rod from his mouth, and slay the wicked with a breath from his lips. Justice will be the belt around his waist, faithfulness the sash around his hips. The wolf will lie with the lamb, the leopard lie down with the kid, calf, young lion and fattened lamb together, with a little child to lead them. Cow and bear will feed together, the young will lie down together, and the lion will eat straw like the ox. An infant will play on a cobra's hole, a toddler put his hand in a viper's nest. They will not hurt or destroy anywhere on my holy mountain. For the earth will be as full of the knowledge of Adonai, as water covering the sea. On that day the root of Yesha, which stands as a banner for the peoples, the nations will seek him out, and the place where he rests will be glorious. On that day Adonai will raise his hand, again, a second time, to reclaim the remnant of his people who remain, from Ashur, Egypt, Patros, Ethiopia, Elam, Shinar, Hamath and the islands in the sea. He will hoist a banner for the nations, assemble the dispersed of Israel, and gather the scattered of Yehudah. From the four corners of the earth, Ephraim's jealousy will cease. Those who harass Yehudah will be cut off. Ephraim will stop envying Yehudah, and Yehudah will stop provoking Ephraim. They will swoop down on the flank of the Pelishtim to the west. Together they will pillage a people to the east. They will put out their hand over Edom and move, and the people of Ammon will obey them. Adonai will dry up the gulf of the Egyptian sea. He will shake his hand over the Euphrates river, to bring a scorching wind, dividing it into 7 streams, and enabling people to cross dry shod. There will be a highway for the remnant of his people, who are still left from Ashur, just as there was for Israel, when he came out from the land of Egypt. 12:1 On that day you will say, I thank you, Adonai, because, although you were angry at me, your anger is now turned away, and you are comforting me. See, God is my salvation. I am confident and unafraid, for Yah Adonai is my strength and my sang, and he has become my salvation. Then you will joyfully draw water from the springs of salvation. On that day you will say, give thanks to Adonai, call on his name, make his deed known among the peoples, declare how exalted is his name, sing to Adonai, for he has triumphed. This is being made known throughout the earth. Shout and sing for joy, you who live in Zion, for the Holy One of Israel is with you in his greatness. Berit Hadashah Yochanan, John 20:15-20. 20:15 Yeshua said to her, Lady, why are you crying? Whom are you looking for? Thinking he was the gardener, she said to him, Sir, if you're the one who carried him away, just tell me where you put him, and I'll go and get him myself. Yeshua said to her, Miriam. Turning, she cried out to him in Hebrew, Rabbani, that is, Teacher, stop holding on to me. Yeshua said to her, because I haven't yet gone back to the Father. But go to my brothers, and tell them that I am going back to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. Miriam of Magdala went to the Talmidim with the news that she had seen the Lord and that he had told her this. In the evening that same day, the first day of the week, when the Talmidim were gathered together behind locked doors out of fear of the Judeans, Yeshua came, stood in the middle and said, Shalom Aleichem. Having greeted them, he showed them his hands and his side. The Talmidim were overjoyed to see the Lord.